ביאור משנה י"ג. משנתנו מוסיפה ללמד באיסורי שבת שאינם נוהגים במקדש. We're going to continue learn about rules from the rabbis that they didn't do in the temple. Number one, מחזירים רתייה במקדש. You are able to return a רתייה, a bandage, in the מקדש. What does it mean? כהן שהייתה לו מכה בידו, a כהן that had a wound in his hand, ונתן עליה רתייה. He put on it a bandage. היינו, תחבושת עם משחה לריפוי המכה, which means it's like a plaster in our days, but there's a cream inside. That's the name of retiya. By the way, the word plaster that we use today, you know, everybody uses plaster in Israel. Band-aid. Band-aid. Oh, you know where does it come from? It's not a plaster. You know what? No, plaster. You know, plaster is the stuff you put on the wall. This is what they used to use. The only reason, yeah, I don't know. They used to use some seed or something, yeah. And what it was is they used to put the medicine inside. It was like a cream. And they used to smear it on top, and that was the plaster. Afterwards, today, Band-Aid is no plaster because it has no medicine in it. But the old plaster, it had a cream with, and it just continued.
That's why it's called plaster.
Yeah, because when you have a wound, you put plaster on. Yeah, but today's Band-Aids have got nothing to do with it. We're talking about something that heals you. ובשבת הוצרך לתלה מידו. Now Shabbat comes in, and he's not allowed to walk in the temple with having anything that stops between him and the kli, for example. If he holds a vessel, he holds a knife, or he holds anything, it needs to be able to completely touch it. He's not allowed to touch it through a baguette, through a clothing, or through the bandage. So he has to remove it. No. He's just got a cut. He's got a cut. Nothing, yeah. He's not missing a finger. He's not missing a finger. Yeah. שלא תהא חוצצת בין ידו לעבודה. Nothing is allowed to stop between his hand and the type of work he's doing. Imagine that even when they walk in the temple, they had to walk barefoot. Because there's nothing, when you walked, imagine Yerushalayim now. Yeah. שתהא צריך לעבוד במקדש. That needs to, any work that needs to be in the temple has to be this way. So it says in the temple, רשאי הוא להחזירה על גבי מכתו לאחר העבודה בשבת. It says we're going to allow him to return it to his hand after the service on Shabbat. Now, what's the problem at all? So you have to remember, at that time, they used medicine, they used to grind them. They have all kinds of herbs and spices or whatever, and they used to grind them to make medicine. So it's not like today. If you go 200 years ago to the pharmacy, you know, that's the way it was. What he had all kinds of herbs. You would come, you would say, I need this and this. He would take a little bit of this, a little bit of this. He'll grind it and do it. At home, if we will let you do this, they're afraid that what you're going to come to some grinding. So therefore, we don't let you do any type of medicine. Yeah. שאם לא יתירו לו להחזירה, it says, what's the problem over here? For the work is fine. Why are you returning it later on? This is after you worked already. Why do we allow him to return it? יש חשש שמא יימנע מעבודה במקדש, כדי שלא יצטרך ליטול את הרתייה מן המכה. We are worried maybe he's not going to work that day in the temple because he says, I can't work because of this. But if we allow him to take it off and put it on, then in other words, we allow him. The only reason we're allowed to put it on because without putting it on, he's not going to work. He might not work. Let's say it.
But they allow him to take it first of all off, do the work, and then put it back on.
Yeah, to take it off is not a problem. Of course, they allow him. That's not the idea. The fact that they will allow him to put it on after work. It says for work, I understand, but after work, why do you need to put it on? Because it says he will not work otherwise.
What's the problem to put it on? Just put a small put a line, no?
Yeah, but we said in the Medina, in the world, we're not going to give you it because once we let you start, you might going to add a little bit of spices, a little bit of smamanim. You know, you took it off already. You might add something. That's what you do. You know, people are going to it. In the temple, you're not worried about it. אבל לא במדינה, but not in outside of the temple, מחוץ למקדש. אסור להחזירה בשבת רטייה שפירשה מעל המכה. If you had a bandage on Shabbat and it was removed on Shabbat, it fell, whatever happened, you're not allowed to return it. Why? גזירה שמא ימרחנה, since it has lotion on it, and you're going to come to smear it, ונמצא ממחק בשבת, שאב מלאכה הוא. You're going to find that you're going to smear it on Shabbat, and this is considered אב מלאכה. By the way, just, I don't think it's going to be discussed here. Practically today, we put band-aids on, right? So why do we put band-aids on? It doesn't have medicine. Very good. The band-aid today, you're not worried that you're going to smear anything. There's nothing there. It's not to heal. The band-aid today doesn't heal. All it does, it protects. You're not allowed to heal. If the band-aid has a healing ointment, you may be not be allowed to put it. Or you yourself on Shabbat not allowed to put healing ointment on the band-aid. Yeah? On your wound. But the band-aid itself, that's not a problem.
Why can't you do it? I don't understand. Today, you take a little, you don't have to grind it or do like in the old days. So you just take a little thing and you put it.
The ointment?
Okay?
The ointment today is memareach. You're not allowed to smear.
Just put it in, you don't memarech.
Oh.
Really raw.
Because it's...
Sometimes it's a Mishnah.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to memareach. Because you might come to lemareach. That's right. Atzur to shmir, oil, and that's it. That's right. Same thing with oil. You're not allowed to do it on Shabbat. You're not allowed to put cream. You know, like all this cream for the hands. People got cracks on Shabbat. You're not allowed to put the cream. That's exactly the thing. Again, the cream is for sure, because that's also that's mamash deoraisa. But even Tylenol, some people don't take today. You know, because in the past, that's the way they used to make Tylenol. They said, I'll give you one Tylenol, even if it's prepared, or you'll make the next one afterwards. But people do take Tylenol, just practically. Yeah. אם בתחילה, אם בא אדם להניח לכתחילה רטייה על מכתו בשבת, but if, even in the temple, the person got cut, yeah, during the walk, and now he wants to come and put something on his hand, even in the temple, we're not going to allow it, because that's what it is. It's shmir. Kan vekan asur. So in other words, you are able to put the retiya on without shmiring if you're very, very careful. You know, if you're very, very careful, it's possible, but you know what, between you and me, you're gonna come do it. Kan vekan asur. Even in the temple and in the countryside, we both prohibited. Afilu b'mikdash asur. שאין אומרים בזה, because in such a manner we don't say any איסור שבות במקדש. We don't say there's no שבות in the temple. שהרי שבות זו, because over here you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for the work. You're doing it for you. In the other ones, you're also doing it for you, but you're doing it for you because otherwise you will not work. Yeah. אינה לצורך גבוה. It's not for the necessity of the temple. It's for your necessity. אלא לצורך עצמו, but it is for your own. בגמרא אמרו,
למה you said it's for himself? If he got hurt before the עבודה, he need to put it in order to לעבוד.
He's not allowed to work with it.
He's not allowed.
It has to be after. It has to be after. Yeah. בגמרא אמרו, in the Gemara they said, שלא אסרו להחזיר רטייה בשבת, it says that when is the time you're not allowed to return it, אלא כשפרשה על גבי קרקע. Only when it already removed from himself. He has no contact with it. אבל אם לקחה בידו, but if he takes it in his hand, you remember it's like the book, it's still in my hand, like the book that fell, it's still in my hand, if it's still in your hand, או נתנה על גבי כלי, or you put it specifically on another vessel, and it's in your mind that it's going to go back, מותר להחזירה מכל מקום, then you will be allowed to put it back. Okay. Next one. Another thing that's very interesting, a lot of people don't realize this. It's very strange when people hear it. You know that all the melachot that we are allowed to do on Shabbat, all of them, they're done in Bet HaMikdash. They lit the fire, they brought the sacrifices, the blood, everything was on Shabbat, everything. Including one more thing that people don't think about. What's that thing? Let's see. Koshrim nima b'mikdash. You're allowed to tie a nima in the temple. We're going to see what a nima is soon. שכן הלוויים היו מנגנים בכינור בשעת הקרבת הקורבנות במקדש. The Leviim used to play musical instruments in the temple. Yeah? At the time that you bring sacrifices. ובא המשנה ללמדנו, the Mishnah comes to teach you that if one of the string broke, one of the string broke, שמותר לקשות בשבת נימה שנפסקה בכינור. If one of the string broke, you can fix it on Shabbat. הטעם מבואר בגמרא. It says, what do you mean? לפי שמכשירי מצווה. The rule is that מכשירי מצווה, for example, if a knife, right? There's no knives in the temple. I don't know what. Somebody came at night and installed all the knives. And now you can bring sacrifices. Now you can bring sacrifices. So go ahead and make knives. You should go ahead and make knives now. Only in the temple. If you don't have, one of the knife is nicked, and there's no unnicked knife. So go ahead, sharpen it. What's the problem? The same thing. Go ahead, sharpen it. So even though it's not a mitzvah to have a knife, but it's a mitzvah to shecht.
If I have a hole in my kiddush cup in Bet HaMikdash and there is no cups.
No, that's not for God.
Mitzvah.
Not for God. For God. Work of the temple it has to be. No, not for you. No. Not a mitzvah for you, a mitzvah for the temple. For Hashem, לפי שמכשירי מצווה שאי אפשר היה לעשותה מערב שבת, דוחים את השבת. So if you had time before Shabbat to prepare it, you had to prepare it before Shabbat. You're not allowed to use this. It happened, it just broke now. Go ahead, fix it. ומכאן יש מפרשים, and there are those who says, when there's a debate, by the way, when you tie that knot on the string, which knot should you use? There's a debate, which knot are you going to use to tie the string? So some say you're allowed to tie it the regular way, that you always do. And some say no, you have to tie it in a knot that is not a strong knot, so that you're not going to come even duraisa. A debate within the string. But anyway, we allow you to tie it. Which way to tie it? It's all debate. Okay. ומכאן יש מפרשים שמותר לעשות אפילו קשר של קיימה. You even allowed to tie it properly. אלא שבמקום שאין צורך בקשר, אין עושים אלא עניבה. But when you don't need it, you can just do a regular granny knot, that it's not a strong knot. ויש מפרשים, there are those who explain, שמדובר כאן בקשר שנו של כמה מטר. No. We're not going to let you do a real knot ever. You always have to do a granny knot. ואילו קשר של קיימה, אב מלאכה הוא. קשר של קיימה is a real מלאכה. ואף במקדש אסור לעשותו. And even in the מקדש, you're not allowed to do it. Okay. אבל לא במדינה. So we're not allowed to do this out of the temple. מחוץ למקדש אסור לקשור בשבת נימה שנפסקה בכינור. Out of the temple, one is not allowed to in any manner. אם בתחילה, הבא לקשור לכתחילה בשבת נימה בכינור, שלא הייתה שם מקודם, כאן וכאן אסור. So if you had time before Shabbat, and you didn't before Shabbat, we're not going to allow you anyway. It's only if it happened on Shabbat and there's nothing else. Then we allow you. כאן וכאן אסור. אף במקדש אסור, so also in the temple it's prohibited because you had time beforehand. שהואיל ויכול היה לקשרה מערב שבת, since you had time to do it from before Shabbat, אינו דוחו שבת, then it doesn't push the Shabbat. So it only pushes Shabbat when it happens on Shabbat and you don't have another string instrument to use. Next one. חותכים יבלת במקדש. You're allowed to cut, how do you call it? It's the hard stuff on your hand. What is it? It's, I forgot what the name is also in English. We'll remember it soon. It's like a blister, but it's not wet. It's very dry. Kohen שעלתה בו יבלת, a Kohen that had by him יבלת, it's like a growth of skins, dry skin. הואיל והיא מעכבת את עבודתו המקדש. Also this one separates him. Callus. Very good, callus. Since it also is not allowed to walk this way in the temple, just like a woman, when she goes to the mikveh, if she has a callus, she has to remove it when she goes to the mikveh because it's a separator. So they have to remove completely. The skin has to be very soft. So the same thing for the Kohen in the temple. He's not allowed to touch from a yabelet any of the instruments that he's using. שעושה אותו לבעל מום. That yabelet makes him, over here it's the yabelet itself, while it's on him, he's not allowed to, it's as long as this yabelet is on him, he will not be able to work in Bet HaMikdash. It doesn't look because it's going to be separating for a different reason, because it's in a place that the sage says that as long as you have it, you become blemish. This is considered the blemish. So you have to remove the blemish. רשאי הוא לחתוך אותו בשבת על ידי שינוי. He's allowed to cut it off on Shabbat. I think it's a wart over here. A wart. That's what it means. Yeah. No, that like the women do. When they've got rough skin on their feet, they have got special stones. Yeah, exactly. There's a ways to do it. Trust me. Yeah. לחתוך אותו בשבת. So he's allowed to cut it, but he's not allowed to cut it with an instrument. Cutting with an instrument is Isur Deoraisa. It's prohibition from the Torah. But he's allowed to cut it with, I don't know, with whatever. With his teeth. With his teeth, yeah, with a way of change. כגון בידו, בשיניו, for example, he's using his hand or his teeth. בגמרא מבואר, in the Gemara it explains, שאם הייתה יבשה, the Gemara explains that if it was completely dry, חותכה אף בכלי. He's allowed to cut it also with a knife. אבל לא במדינה. All this is allowed only in the temple, but not outside of the temple. מחוץ למקדש אסור לחתוך ירבד בשבת. Outside of the temple you're not allowed to cut a wart on Shabbat, אפילו בשינוי, even in a different way. גזירה שמחתך בסכין ומספריים, because once you started doing it with your teeth, then you say, it's not going well, let me get the knife. והרי זה תולדת גוזז. This is an offspring, this is a tolda of the melacha of shearing. That's what you do, you're shearing a part of your body. ואם בכלי, and even in the temple, if you use a vessel, a knife for example, אבל לחתוך יבלת בכלי, but to cut a wart with a tool, אם היבלת היא לחה, if the wart is wet, כאן וכאן אסור, in both places they're not allowed. אף במקדש אסור, also in the temple it is prohibited, and you can see that there's a difference if it's wet or dry. Some say you are, some say you're not. I'm not quite sure what exactly the difference is. שמלאכה גמורה היא, that it is a complete מלאכה. ויש מפרשים, דארדוז ורסי, שמדובר כאן ביבלת שעלתה בקורבן שקרב בשבת. We're not talking about a person, a wart on the person, we're talking about a wart on the korban itself. הואיל והיבלת מומו בקורבן, since the wart is a blemish in the sheep, for example, מותר לחתכה בשבת ביד. You're allowed to remove it with your hand from the korban, but not with a vessel, not with a tool. Yeah.